Kia ora, and welcome to the Beer Jerk Beer of the Week Drink Along. I'm Luke, and this week we're drinking a beer from Small Gods, which is it's a Pilsner that's been, a very lively Pilsner, that's been finished with Brettanomyces bruxellensis. So this beer is siding with chaos against good order, which is a pretty unique beer. And it smells absolutely amazing. So taking a couple of steps back, I'm Luke, the guy behind Beer Jerk, and also one of the two guys behind Small Gods. So regular watchers will remember Matt, who used to work at Beer Jerk and now he's sadly left us, but he's still involved in these interesting Small Gods beers that we make together. And this beer, it came about from us just having a discussion about how delicious Brettanomyces is. And there was maybe 10 years ago when lots of breweries all around the world were getting really excited by Brett and spiking all sorts of things with Brett, which is it's kind of a wild, naturally occurring yeast. And this one, as is in the name, bruxellensis, you might guess that it originates from Brussels, where all these wonderful, interesting wild fermented beers come from. There's lots of lambic beers there, breweries like Cantillon that you might recognise, and there's just wild, naturally occurring yeast that just exists all around us in the world. And in the olden days, before yeast got isolated by, well, Louis Pasteur is sort of the main guy behind that, behind isolating yeast for brewers and for bakers. Brewers would just kind of make this sugary wort, and yeast would just fall in, and it would just ferment and turn into kind of wild, funky, slightly sour beer. So the way we made this beer is we took a base of a Pilsner, which was actually a beer that you probably drank. So you might remember last year we released this beer, What Can the Harvest Hope For, which is a really beautiful Pilsner that we made with as a collaboration with some ingredient suppliers, and we used Motuega hops from one single plot that was selected for us by Freestyle Hops. But then we took a portion of that wort, we fermented it, but then we stuck it in a tank with this Brett yeast for about 5 months. Because the thing with Brett is that it's absolutely a beast. It just eats every little bit of sugar that it can find in a beer. Right, the head's gone down a bit, so I can have a swig now. Oh God, so good. I might sound biased because I'm one of the people that made this beer, but honestly, this is so delicious. Anyway, back to the Brett tank. So we sat this beer for sort of secondary in this tank with some Brett for about 5 months, and we didn't know how long it was going to take. It was just until it was finished, basically. So at Small Gods, we don't have our own brewery. We just brew at our friends' breweries. So luckily, we happen to know a lot of wonderful people all over New Zealand, and sort of like a commercial kitchen, I suppose. So we can just rent their tank space and rent their facilities, and we can get beer brewed at various places. So we brew at all kinds of different places, but for this one we brewed at North End. So Kieran there does a lot of really interesting wild ferment beers, mixed fermentation, barrel aging. Just a massive fan of just Kieran's approach to beer and his beers. So we knew it would be a great place to partner with to make this beer that was just going to be in tank for a while. And yeah, he'd call us up every now and again. We'd be checking in on how the beer was going, and it was just still bubbling away. Those little Brett yeast were just still bubbling away, finding bits of sugar to eat, until finally it was finished and ready to package just before Christmas. And with wild yeast, you can never know exactly what you're going to get, and especially when people are aging things in barrels, they'll often blend different barrels just to get the exact beer they want to end up with. So you see breweries like a Garage Project, like 8 Wired, like North End doing great stuff with barrels. And for this, we tasted it when it was ready, and it was it really exceeded our expectations. What we're going for, we were hoping that some of that just lovely fresh Motueka flavor profile would come through, the sort of like soft, fresh stone fruit character of things like, you know, peach and sort of apricot notes would still come through and wouldn't be destroyed completely by the Brett. but also we really didn't want there to be too much bitterness to this beer, because I personally feel like the bitterness that you get in IPAs and a lot of bitter styles, like sometimes Pilsner, can clash with the wild funkiness of the Brett. And in this beer, it's just kind of the perfect match, really. You're getting the aroma of the hops, and you're getting the, I mean, it definitely is sourness, but it's not sour in the same way that you might think about a lambic beer or a kettle sour for that matter. It's more of a sort of a layered complexity. People talk about Brett B as having horse blanket notes or barnyard funky notes, and it's really quite a hard thing to describe the flavour of, really, because probably a lot of you watching this might have never sniffed a horse blanket, which is kind of weird how these words enter the vernacular of beer tasting or of wine tasting or of anything. But horse blanket, I have ridden and groomed horses, and I get what they mean. It's sort of, it's just like the sweet sweatiness of a blanket that's been on a horse, which sounds really fucking disgusting. But yeah, you horsey people watching might get a bit of an idea as to what I'm talking about with this beer. So it's got a dryness to it. It's absolutely completely bone dry. Every bit of sugar has been sucked out of this and fermented to leave you just with a really super refreshing beer. And it's a beer that we wanted to put out for the summer, and it's a beer that's we didn't want it to be too wanky or too pretentious, which you often can get with some of these mixed ferment and wild ferment, just because they're bloody expensive. Because they are beers that take a bit of work to make, they take a lot of time to make. But that's not how beers like this were first drank and designed to be drank. You know, it's just how all beer was made with Brett B and Brett C, which is the sort of the English variety of Brett. More of which you may get to taste in a few months' time. Just hinting at the fact that we've got a beer with Brett C in tank at the moment that might be ready in another 3 or 4 months. But yeah, this is exactly the sort of beer that I want to be drinking on a hot day when it's bloody sweltering, and it's just, yeah, it's dry, it's refreshing, goes really well with food. So definitely a good beer to be having with some good stinky cheese, especially. But you can probably pair it with all kinds of things. In the NZ Beer Jerks Facebook group, if you're drinking this beer tonight, be sure to let us know if you're pairing it with something interesting. And what else to say about this beer? Oh, the label art was really good fun. As you know, Matt and I are big fans of Terry Pratchett. So this is just a wonderful piece of writing by Pratchett that we took inspiration from. And in fact, well, you'll enjoy reading it. I won't go too far into it, but the name is what's highlighted out here, siding with chaos against good order, which really is kind of obvious, the chaos as to what was happening in that tank with this Brett just going crazy. But you could basically pick just any random words from this piece of text from the Pratchett novel and just come up with a really fucking cool beer name. You could just start a brewery and just have 80 names just in this little bit of text here. So we really enjoyed designing this label, and it was kind of good fun to, we decided to go for a bit of a smaller label, just a bit of a different direction, and the beer that I just hinted to, that I've just spilled, that will come out in a few months, is kind of the inverse of this, that will be coming out. So yeah, anyway, I'm very aware that I waffled on forever and ever last week, so I'll try and keep it shorter this week. Other stuff to talk about, we've got a little beer festival happening this Saturday here at the Fridge and Flagon. So we're back in the swing of things. So in our warehouse, we also have a bar, which is where I am at the moment. Maybe you've visited us at the Fridge and Flagon. If you haven't, this Saturday is the perfect time to come down and for the first time. So we've got 3 Small Gods beers that are getting released on Saturday, one of which is this, so you'll get to drink some more of it. One is our latest table beer, which is Gawain, the latest in the series of table beers that we release pretty regularly now, named after the Knights of the Round Table. And the third one is a beer that is getting put into cans and kegs on Friday, and that is Jupiter's Veil, which is it's a rye dark saison that's made with orange zest. So we had a really good fun time taking the oranges and zesting them by hand, one by one. And yeah, me and Joe popped into the brewery yesterday and had a taste from the tank, and it's tasting pretty good. So very excited to see how that comes out. So we've also got a food truck. We've got the Strawberry Pig. So our friend Carlo is going to come, and he's got all kinds of different skewers. He's doing some interesting orange glazes to match with the orange effect. And our friend Blair, also known as DJ Apparel Spritz, is going to be spinning some vinyl from about 3 o'clock. So it's going to be soul, funk, bit of disco. So come along, join us for a beer or two and a skewer on Saturday afternoon. And until then, I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. I really hope you enjoy this beer. A lot of work, a lot of passion went into this, so I hope you enjoy it even half as much as I do, because I fucking love it. See you next time. Cheers.